MDI, or Multiple Document Interface, simply means you're going to have one container form that contains all of your other forms. This form is known as a parent. All the contained forms, the ones that actually run within this environment, are called child forms. This comes in real handy when you have a lot of documents and forms that you need to have open at one time. Child forms are always contained within the parent. SDI is Single Document Interface. Only one form can be displayed at a time. Notepad and WordPad are good examples of this because you can only have one thing open at one time. So why would you use MDI? Well, basically, if you've got an application where the user might open a lot of forms at one time, it's really nice for this type of scenario because it allows you to close all the forms when the parent is closed automatically. A lot of business applications use this type of format, as well as Word and Excel and PowerPoint and all the Office applications use this type of format. That way you don't have to close each individual form prior to closing the whole application. Now, MDI children forms are just standard forms that you create that you set the MDI child property to true. Now, you can have regular forms in combination with the MDI forms within one MDI application. That's fine. There's some rules that go along with these MDI children. They have to behave. Basically, your child forms have to be displayed within the MDI parent's client area. Now, these rules are enforced for you. You don't have to do any coding to get this functionality. Child forms can be moved and sized only within the MDI parent's client area. Child forms can be minimized, and their icon's actually going to be displayed on the parent's client area, not in your taskbar. Child forms can be maximized, and when they're maximized, they actually go into the client area of the MDI parent, take up the whole area, and then their caption is appended to the caption of the MDI form. If the child has menu items, they'll actually replace any MDI forms menu items. Windows will automatically give forms with a sizable border, any child forms with a sizable border, a default size. The size will be based on the size of the MDI parent's client area. Child forms cannot be displayed modally, so you won't be able to create a child form and then pop it up in a modal state. It just doesn't work. If the child form is loaded, the parent will be automatically loaded because a child form cannot exist without a parent. The MDI form can be minimized, and basically it'll take all of the children with it and minimize them all so you only get one icon on the desktop. If the MDI form is unloaded, all of the loaded children will be unloaded as well. Let's actually take a look at an MDI application. Let's bring up Microsoft Word and open up a couple documents so you can see how child forms behave. Well, here's Microsoft Word, and I have one document open. Now, if I add another document, and another one, and another one, you can see that I've got multiple documents open now. This is Multiple Document Interface. Now, one of the things you can do is if you come over here, you can actually minimize each of these documents. And when you do, they actually float down here to the bottom of your Word environment. You can move these things around. You can restore them back to their normal size, or actually maximize them within the parent also. So either way. But one of the things you'll notice is that if you try to move this document, it goes underneath the parent. You can't move it outside of the parent application. Down below, it just doesn't. It just stays underneath. So this is part of the features of the Windows application, MDI application. So if we bring up each one of these documents here, bring this up full screen, for example. This one, document 3, you can see its caption was added to the MDI parent. And then its restore and minimize buttons went here. Trying to move this, here we go. We'll bring up each of these here. Here we go, we've got them all. But you notice they're all kind of now discombobulated. They're in a different area here. So one of the things we can do is if we go up to the Window menu, you'll see that there are some new things like Arrange All. If we click on Arrange All, it has arranged all of the documents into a nice format. The other thing you can do under this Window menu is you can use the window list here to actually select the different documents. I just selected document 2. Or I go back and I select document 3. So that's a way to move from one document to the other. You typically do that when you're using the full screen method here to move from document 1 to document 2 to document 3, etc., etc. Let's take our employee form that we've had going throughout this videotape, and let's take it and move it into an MDI application. Now to do that, we're going to start a new project and we're going to build an MDI form. Then we're going to add the employee tracking form to our particular MDI project. The problem we have is the menu system. The menus right now are on the MDI child, and we want to put them onto the MDI parent. Well, there's no easy way to do this in Visual Basic, so what we got to do is we actually have to go into Notepad and do a little bit of copying and pasting. Let's go ahead and create a brand new project. Select Standard Exe, and here we are. Now what I'm going to do is go to the Project menu, and I'm going to select Add an MDI Form. And we select this template. Now it brings in a form that looks very much like the others. It just has kind of a darker background. Well, one of the things I usually do is I go ahead and start setting the properties for this. So let's go over to the Properties window and set the name. Now for me, I always name my main form FRM main. Set the caption to the name of the application, Employee Tracking System, or whatever you're doing. At this point, I've got this MDI form. Let's just make it a little bit larger here. This is now the MDI parent. Let's close this down, close the standard form down, and look at the project window. Notice that this has a different icon here than the standard form does. Now, how do we convert this standard form into a MDI child? If we double click on it, it brings it up. Then let's go over to the Properties window, and we'll find the MDI child property, and we'll set that property to true. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now if we look back up here in the project window, you'll see that it has a different icon now. So that there are different icons for standard forms, MDI forms, and MDI child forms. So now what we have to do is we have to actually add our employee project, our employee form, to this project. But part of what we need to do is we need to put the menus for the employee system on this main form. Because right now there are no menus on here. Well, to do that, first off, what we have to do is we have to save this project. So let's go ahead and save this in a temp directory, just so I'll remember that I can delete it later. And let's go to the temp directory, and we'll save this main form. Button here, save that form, and save the project. Now the reason I have to do this is because I'm going to actually close the project right now. So we'll go ahead and close this. Close VB down. This is where it gets a little tricky, because what we have to do is we have to go to Explorer, and we have to open up our sample that had our employee form. And I'll just grab one of the latest ones that I've done. And I have to grab the FRX file too. Remember that the FRX is the other data that goes along with the form, graphical data. And so what I've got now is I've got this employee form over here. Well, what you need to do is you actually need to drag and drop this into WordPad. So I'm going to do a little bit of dragging and dropping here. If I can find Notepad, here's Notepad over here. Let's get a shot over here. There we go. Let's just grab this employee form, drag and drop it over here to Notepad. Now this is what a form looks like underneath the hood. Basically it has a begin, employee name, and then all the properties are listed here. Well, what we've got to do is we've actually got to go down quite a ways until we find the menu system. Like I said, this is probably the worst thing they've got in VB is the menu system. It hasn't changed since version 1.0. We just keep paging down here until we finally start seeing the menus. Okay, these are the menus starting right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to highlight these menus now all the way down till the end of all the menus. They're usually the last thing, so I basically find the begins and ends all the way through. I'm now going to hit Control-C to copy those to the clipboard. I'm going to close this down, let's go back to Explorer now and let's grab the main form, and we're going to drag and drop this over to Notepad. So here is our begin of this main form, and here's the end. Well, we want to put the menu system that we just copied into here. So we hit Control V. And there we go. We've now added the menu system to the main form. Let's save this, close this down, and then we will reopen our project. And now, under Project 1, I've got the two forms, Form 1 and Form Main. But if we bring up Form Main, we should see, voila, a menu system. Isn't that amazing? But basically all I did was I just copied this in from that other system just by going into Notepad. So a little bit of a weird thing, but it works. We've now got the menu system on the main MDI form. Now, I didn't actually cut it out of the other one, so when I bring the employee form in, I will have to delete that. Then I can set the MDI child property on this employee form to true so that it becomes a child. We then hook up the code, and voila, we have an MDI application. So let's do that now. So let's go ahead and go up to the project menu, and we'll select Add Form. But now instead of selecting one of the templates here, we're going to actually use the existing tab here to go out and grab that employee form that we had basically copied the menus from. We'll double click on this and go over to the project window now, and we'll find our form employee. Now you can see it's still a standard form. You see this is a child, this is a standard, and this is the MDI form itself. We'll bring this up and then we'll go down to the properties window, and we're going to set the MDI child property, if I can find it, MDI child property, we're going to set to true. Now one thing you should probably do when you set the MDI child property to true is you'll probably want to set the border style not to sizable but to fixed single. Because one of the things I mentioned about an MDI child is that it will resize to the parent's client area. And we want to keep this fixed because we have developed our screen to a certain size. So there we go, we've got that. But the other thing we have to do is up here, we need to get rid of the menu system. Remember, this menu system is built, and then we don't really need that anymore. So let's go ahead and we'll go into the menu system, and we will just click on each one of these and hit delete. Delete, 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 delete. And we're just going to get rid of all of this menu system here. We'll click OK, and voila, it's gone off of this form, and remember that we had put it on the MDI child. Now when you delete things like this, you do need to check. I'm going to go ahead and double click on the form here just to bring up a code window. But you do need to check and make sure that no code is left over. Go to the General Declarations area and go down here and find out if there's anything. Here's one. Menu fexit _ click. This is leftover code. Now this code isn't going to bomb, but it's just going to be dead code that's sitting out there. And by the way, this is one of the reasons why I mentioned I like to never use underscores in my procedures, because that way when I look over here and if I see something with an underscore, I know it's dead code. I can go in and delete it. Now that we've got the employee form in here, all we have to do is call it from the MDI parent. So I've already got an employee menu item. Let's go ahead and add the code for that. Then we're going to go in and we're going to position the employee form to a certain location.